Hey, this is Eddie Spaghetti from the greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Super Suckers.
Hey, this is Joe from the Mises. This is Adam Franklin from Swerve Driver.
This is Artie Lang from the Howard Stern Show.
Hey, this is John from the Fags.
Hey, this is Rick Kubik, drummer from Natarone.
This is Josh Hayden from Spain.
Matt Sharp from The Rentals, and you are listening to...
And you're listening to the Dark Stuff Podcast.
And you're listening to the Dark Stuff Podcast.
The Dark Stuff Podcast. Hey everybody, it's me, Dave Splash from thedarkstuff.com and the Dark Stuff Podcast. Welcome to episode 108. In this episode, I interview Omaha duo Drake's Hotel. We'll be playing a number of songs from the band's catalog. We'll be talking about the entire history of the band as well as their plans for the future. Now, I have been living in Omaha since 2004 when I returned from a 15-year absence, and I consider myself pretty clued in to the local music scene, but I have to say that the band Drake's Hotel eluded me for a long time. I tell the story in the interview while I was talking to them about my first discovering the band pretty recently, actually, and I felt bad because how did I not know that this band was around? They're a duo that plays music that initially to me sounded a lot like the Ravenettes. I think the Ravenettes is a good source, a good comparison, actually, but there's a whole lot of other elements going on. The Ravenettes mix a lot of like early 60s girl group stuff along with kind of modern electronic music. I would say Drake's Hotel doesn't necessarily pull on that reference, but they do mix a lot of 80s music and early 90s music, electronic stuff, elements of shoegaze, of course. I didn't know too much about Drake's Hotel when I sat down to interview the two members, Chris and Amy. I knew they were a married couple, I knew they'd had a couple of CDs out, and I knew that I liked the music, and that was about it. The band has spent time in a number of other cities besides Omaha. They've lived in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, for example. And one thing I learned about them that I didn't know was that they've had their songs licensed in TV shows, and ones that I've actually heard of. They had songs licensed to shows like Being Human and Lost Girl on the SyFy channel. To a show called Royal Pains, which I've seen commercials for, a show called LA Complex, which I've never heard of, but that doesn't mean much. It was on the CW. The band is constantly recording and working on new material. They record all their stuff at home so they don't have to use big budget studios. They're on the verge of releasing a new album this summer, and Chris, who's one of the members of the band, is also going to be releasing a solo album, so there's no shortage of creativity among these two. Before we get into the interview, we're going to start off with a little bit of music from the band's most recent EP, Love's Not Lazy. We'll start off the show with a track called Leave It Dark. This is music from Drake's Hotel on the Dark Stuff Podcast.
Drake, and I'm the singer, and I play guitar and keyboard and whatever else is my fancy at the moment.
And now bass.
Bass.
Yep. And I'm Chris Eunolis. I play guitar, various other things in the studio, but live, just guitar.
Okay. Now, you guys are married.
Yeah.
So, is that how the band? I mean, were you already married when you started the band? Did you start the band in some different context, and then you became married, or what was? How did that exactly happen? What are the origins? How did you guys start off?
Well, we met in Santa Cruz, California, in a record store I was working in, and started going out. I guess we started the band. I moved to Seattle not long after we started going out.
Now, what year are we talking about here?
This is 2003?
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
She came up, and we started writing music almost immediately when she moved up to Seattle. So, yeah.
Now, did you play out at all in Seattle, or was it just kind of like a project doing demos?
We put out an album on our own, played a couple shows, and then, what happened then? God, it was so long ago.
We took off, yeah.
Yeah, we got married after that, and just took off. We went back east to where I'm from for a while, and then we ended up here in Omaha.
Yeah. My family lives back here, so...
Oh, so your family lives in Omaha?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, how did you guys get to Omaha from California to Washington to all these other places? So it wasn't just completely at random, and it wasn't because there's sort of this pre-existing music scene. Or was that even a factor at all?
No, we kind of had a list of possible places we wanted to move, and this was pretty much home for her. So we were like, let's settle there for a while and see if we like it. And if
I think we always knew that we wanted to spend most of the time on the road, so where we called home base for a while didn't really matter. Okay. It was going to be more of a, where is it convenient for us to settle down long enough to record and then get back on the road.
So is that how the plan's been going? I mean, have you spent more time on the road than being here, or is that not how it turned?
We did for a long time.
Yeah.
We've only just recently kind of settled in a little more, but we actually lived on the road full time and traveled and played out.
Oh, well, as Drake's Hotel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
and we
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. We left Omaha and moved to Portland for about 6-7 months. Our label that we were on was there.
Oh, okay.
So we moved up there and then subsequently moved back.
Okay. Yeah. No. So your first show was in Seattle?
Our first show was in Seattle.
Okay. And do you remember anything about that first show, and then maybe your first Omaha show?
Seattle's a blur.
Yeah.
We were part of a showcase.
Well, that was in Portland, yeah. At the Rendezvous, I think, in Seattle. A small club.
Okay. I lived in Seattle for a few years in the early 90s.
Oh, really?
So
nice. I
just remember the places at the time were, it was Rock Candy was one, the Crocodile.
Yeah.
And there was, the Off-Ramp. That's not there anymore? Or wasn't there when you
were
there?
Not when I was there. At least I never saw a show
They had this
there.
great thing after the show. They would clear everyone out for like 10 minutes, and then you could come back in, and they had hash after the bash, so all these drunk people could eat like breakfast food for 75 cents, kind of sober up before they went out, back out driving.
We would have appreciated
that.
I thought it was a genius idea. I used to love that place.
Genius.
I love that place.
It's changed considerably since we were there on tour, and was it 12 or 12? Yeah, and everything's different there now.
Yeah, because it's been since '94, and a buddy of mine that lives in Seattle just messaged me like 2 weeks ago and was like, "Hey, you should come out. We're hosting Simon Joyner in our living room." And I was like, "Well, I would like to come out, but I mean, Simon Joyner's from here, so it's like I could see him, all the time. I'm not really going to fly all the way out there." But I haven't been there in 20 years. I mean, I haven't checked it out.
You probably wouldn't recognize it.
Now, the name Drake's Hotel, where does that come from, and what is there a significance to that?
It's sort of.
Yeah, it's my last name.
Sort of. We recorded our first album, or our first proper album on Reverb Records, and we had moved out to record it into her family's farm in Iowa, and we sort of called that the Drake Hotel.
Oh, I see.
Drake's
Because it's
Hotel.
not Drake apostrophe hotel, like
Right.
as in a hotel belonging
Drake.
to Drake.
Right.
So I just was curious. I mean, I didn't know if it was like what if it had some special sort of significance. You just named the sort of the studio or whatever
Kinda.
that you guys were at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's also a movie reference to
Yeah.
a Bill Cosby movie from the 70s.
Which one?
The second one with Sidney Poitier.
Where there's a heist in a hotel, and they stay in the Drake's
stay in the
Hotel.
Drake's Hotel, the Drake Hotel. And I remember we were like, this has to be the
This
name.
has to be something.
If we die at the stroke of midnight, who will find us tucked away neatly, satisfied completely, waiting for the flight to faraway places, holding hands with the graces. Here's to the days and the myriad ways life takes turns, if that's all we learn. So long live the sky above, long live love, longer than our days alive, love will survive. Handle discreetly the last news you share. Our memory couldn't bear if our children and friends had died of our end. We held dear each other without fear, letting go of all we had here. Here's to the days and the myriad ways life takes turns, if that's all we learn. So long live the sky above, long live love, longer than our days alive, love will survive. We lived out of sight from the world around life's facts on the shoes of Here's to the days and the myriad ways life takes turns, if that's all we learn. So long live the sky above, long live love, longer than our days alive, love will survive. Here's to the days, love will survive. Here's to the
Now has we're musically, I mean, I hear a lot of 80s music in there. I hear a lot of early 90s, a lot of British sounding bands. So who are your main influences, and what were you trying sound wise to sort of accomplish with the group?
That's so tough.
Yeah, we struggle with that. Mostly, we have a big generational gap between the two of us. We have a real broad pool of influences that we pull from. I'm definitely more of an 80s, 90s girl, but Chris has a whole repertoire of beyond that.
I listen to a lot of post-punk and
okay, so you're going back a little bit further.
Yeah, even. But then I was into shoegaze too in the 90s and Britpop. I used to DJ Britpop and new wave and post-punk music back when I lived in Santa Cruz. So I've been into a lot of that. So whether or not I try to sound like that, I don't know. It's just there. You know,
but that's the world. That's the world
you're
moving
for
in.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say our record collections are pretty much that.
That stuff. Okay. Now, who writes the songs? I mean, do you guys collaborate, or does one of you guys write a song, bring it to the band? Is it a case of whoever sings the song, that's kind of who wrote it, or how does that sort of work? Because you both do vocals, so.
Yeah, Chris has been doing the music exclusively for the last couple albums.
Yeah.
And I do. When it's complete, do all of the vocal arrangement on it.
Okay, so you write the vocal melodies and stuff, just totally separate from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
And that's how you guys always
well,
do it that way?
The first two, our first self-release thing and then our first album on Reverb was definitely more of a collaboration, like as far as her on the music and me and the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So you even write the vocal melodies for songs that you don't sing, right? Or no?
It's so hard. It's like we go in and
I'm just always curious about the process because you never just really, especially when there's only two people in the band,
right?
So it's not a question of what is everyone else doing.
We definitely don't have a formulaic way of working. We just kind of go in there, and for me, like a lot of songs, I'll find a beat, I'll make a beat, and then randomly just start working on guitars, and whatever comes out, I'll just start recording, you know. It's, I'll trash a lot of stuff, you know, but then she'll hear it, she's like, oh, I like this. Keep on working on that, you know. I'm like, okay.
Producing.
Yeah. You're like, change this. You know,
now,
I could get into
this. The lyrics, too? Do you write all the lyrics then?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the way it's sort of, so it's music and lyrics, but there's also a little bit of kind of collaboration on that.
Yeah, I'll usually get an idea down, and she'll come in and say, I could work on that. I could definitely do something with that, and then I'll just keep working on it.
Now, is all your stuff self-produced? I mean, you guys just record it completely at home.
Yeah.
You don't ever work in a bigger. Have you ever tried working in a bigger studio? Just
no,
no interest.
No, I have back in the day,
right.
in other bands, but it's just the way we look at it. It's the amount of time we spend on stuff. There's no way we could go into a big studio.
Well, at this point, it's almost like if you're comfortable using a drum machine, a big studio doesn't really offer you that much.
Exactly.
I mean, really, if you want live drums, then you need to go into a big room.
Yep.
If you're comfortable with an electronic drum sound, that eliminates a huge portion of the need for it, right?
It does, for sure. Oh, yeah. That's really is hitting the nail on the head. I mean, it really is about the drums.
And you don't ever necessarily conceive of a time where you would want to have to expand the musicality or whatever and bring in other people. We
have had drummers and bass players many times.
Just didn't work out.
Well,
that was another question I was going to ask. Have there ever been any other people in the band?
Yeah, we've had numerous people in the band.
Most of it has to do with just the fact that they're joining us and playing existing music, and there's not a lot of room for creativity in there.
Right.
So once they want to sort of branch out and maybe play things differently, it becomes really difficult to gently say, these songs have kind of already been written.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the case.
Yeah, you know that part you were doing there? Just sort of don't do that anymore.
I mean, we play with really great musicians, but yeah, that's always the crux of the problem. They want to play with us, or we ask them and they say sure because they've heard our music. So it sort of needs to be that music. So that,
that makes total
you
sense.
know, you feel bad because somebody wants to be creative, but at the same time, we already wrote what we want to play.
And when you go out on tour, it's just the two of you also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes it considerably easier.
Well, I assume it would be cheaper, too.
Yeah.
Right, because you could drive in a car as opposed to needing a van
Yep.
to carry a ton of equipment and stuff like
Exactly.
that. Now, I've only seen you guys live one time, the first time that I ever saw you, which, for anyone listening, I mean, I remember the gig specifically because it was opening for the Crocodiles, who have had my #1 album of the year twice in a row because they're so good.
Awesome.
But nobody was
Great.
there. I felt like, nobody was appreciating it. Buddy of mine and I were there to see them. We got there early, saw you guys' set, and we were both just like, who is this band, and we started hearing like the Ravenettes. That was my thing live, was we were both like, yeah, like this sounds like the Ravenettes. And I think I came right up to the merch thing and talked to you right after the show, because I was like, damn, where the hell did you guys come from? I mean, because I felt like I was pretty in touch with the scene, as it were, but like I didn't know of you guys at that time. Has that been something? I mean, have you felt like you've been able to get to break through or to get enough attention? Or
locally, Omaha is kind of tough for that. We've been on some pretty big name bills. It just never seems to be at the right time.
Yeah.
Like that show, I think, was when Lincoln Calling was going on.
Oh, was it really?
And we had no idea. We were sure that everybody was going to come to a Crocodiles show. They're freaking awesome. Yeah, we're mostly been on the West Coast.
Yeah.
As far as location and tours go.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get out more. It's honestly, you kind of lose track of time when you're recording all the time.
Yeah.
Before you know it, 6 months have gone by, and you're like, oh, I should probably work on setting up a tour. And before you know it, you've got to book at least 4 months out, and then a year's gone almost.
Yeah,
I just completely lose track of it all.
I can't relate firsthand, of course, because I don't really record anything. But I mean, I sort of get the idea. Now, you addressed the you guys were here and then you left for a little bit, and then you came back. So, did you feel like that might have hurt your momentum? I mean, in terms of getting sort of some type of following
out here.
Perhaps?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We were playing out a lot more before we left.
Yeah, when we first came back here, we played often, just all the time, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But, that opportunity to have an album put out by an independent label that had some really great bands on it, we just couldn't pass that up.
And that was Reverb, you said?
That was Reverb, yeah. And the head of Reverb was like, you should come out here. We can do a lot more for you if you're out here. And so we went out there.
It was sort of like over-promising, under-delivering on their part, kind of a little bit?
Yeah.
Kind of. We played a few shows for them with other bands on the label, which was great because now we've got good friends. But the label's kind of not really doing anything now, and all those other bands have gone on to
move on
to other stuff. But
it's been I have no regrets about it at all, though, because that connection is exactly what led us to licensing our songs for television.
Yeah, well,
so
talk
that
about
was
that, because that's something I didn't know about. So
that was such a big thing for us. We've had 4 placements on TV shows, so that's
oh wow, what
tremendous.
shows? I mean, or what was?
So on the CW.
Oh, SyFy.
Yeah, on the CW.
Hey,
CW too.
We were on
yeah.
LA Complex.
I think that show's gone.
Yeah, on the SyFy channel.
Yeah,
we are on
our song Broadcast Addicted was on
Being Human and what was
Lost Girl.
Lost
It was
Girl.
on Lost Girl, and then it was on another song was on Royal Pains.
Royal Pains on USA Network.
Wow. No, that's
yeah,
really
those are
cool.
all
I mean,
pretty cool.
I don't know the shows necessarily,
Right.
but I mean, that's like that's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah.
Electronic
the idea behind licensing, I was talking about this with someone the other day. It used to be probably in the 80s, 90s, it was a lot of artists would sort of look down on something like that and say, oh, that's not cool. You can't do it. Nowadays, shit, nobody buys music anymore, so you have to come up with some way. I mean,
the world's so big, and it would take people so long to find our music if we don't put it out there in another form of media. Television is perfect for,
and it has to get,
discovering.
I did an interview with St. Vincent, and she kind of said the same thing. Like, you can't afford to be so picky. I mean, you have to work your ass off to make a living, period.
Yep.
And she's like on the verge of becoming a rock star, and she was still sweating, paying bills and stuff like this. Was like 2 months ago. So if someone at her level is still thinking like, well, you can call me a sellout, but you're the people that aren't buying the albums anyways.
Right.
So
you can listen for free everywhere.
Yeah.
You gotta sell something
Make
somehow.
your money.
How did you get involved in the whole process of this licensing thing?
From our independent label.
Our label, yeah.
And are you still able to do that now? I mean, could you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep. He's still representing us with that album, and he's still anything new we come out with, he'll take. And
what do you think is the best part about being a band from Omaha, and perhaps the worst part?
It's hard to get out from here.
Yeah,
I'll
everything's
say
a long way away.
The Midwest is very comfortable. It's easy to feel like really domestic about a home and be comfortable in your studio, and it's really hard to get motivated to get out and go on the coast.
Now, you don't see that as any type of advantage because, with Omaha being dead set in the middle of the country, you have an advantage. Like, you can get to the East Coast, you can get to the West Coast. So a band from San Francisco, it's a pain in the ass for them to get all the way to the East Coast.
That's true.
True. But you sort of got to make a decision, at least I've found. Are we going to do the East Coast or the West Coast? It's like when you're on one coast, you can go to the other coast straight through. It's just very...
I'll say, when you're on the coast, you make yourself commit to traveling for a long period of time so that you make it worthwhile when you go out. Here it's easier to say, oh, let's just go do a day trip. Right. And you're not really maximizing your time very much if we just go to Kansas City to play for one show, or we just go to Chicago for one show and come back.
Yeah, it's easier not to be committal.
Yeah.
Just John up to here, go over to Denver, come back. I guess that
works both ways, I guess. Yeah, because on the one hand you can do that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we can get to Chicago, do a show, and come back. Whereas, that same band from Los Angeles, they couldn't just do some special gig in Chicago because that would cost them a boatload of money just to get to Chicago. 2.5, 3 days worth of driving, etc. All that stuff. So okay, so it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Well, there's a lot of notoriety for the Omaha scene, so that's certainly good.
Yeah, we that comes up a lot when people from other places first approach us to talk to us. Tell us what music is really like there. Is the scene what they say it is?
Yeah, do you know Connor Oberst? Does he hang out?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is he constantly just sitting around drinking coffee at Starbucks? It's like, no, that's not the.
It makes us approachable for sure. That's a big thing. People associate people from the Midwest in general with being polite and courteous and having a good work ethic, and that has served us well.
That's true.
They expect us not to be flaky and show up and be professional and.
Well, that's good, I guess.
Which we try to be as best we can.
How can people outside of Omaha acquire your music? I mean, how could somebody listening to this, which is possibly listening on the internet or whatever, what's their next step towards getting a CD?
We always send them to CD Baby first because they really have the fairest rates for artists.
For distribution and stuff?
They're a really good company. They've been really fair.
Okay. Yeah. And do you get stuff, can people buy it just digitally as well? If they don't want to?
They can buy it there. They can listen on Spotify if they want. Beats Music, Pandora, all of those places.
You're on all the online services.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Because I think that's cool to get on there, but you're just like, that is something that's sort of required at this point, but it's almost like, and I feel like this is definitely generational because when I talk to younger people, they don't see it this way at all, but I just think it trains people to think music has no commercial value, like don't pay for it.
Yep.
Like it teaches you from a young age. It's
no
just
worth.
free. Why would I pay for it?
Yep, it has no worth anymore.
Yeah,
because of that, for sure.
And people don't see it, and they don't. Therefore, they don't appreciate. I feel like they don't appreciate it as much. Now, I've done talks with people who say the exact opposite. Who say if you just give away the music for free, music is much more of a live medium. People will appreciate it more. They'll come out more, etc. I don't know if I necessarily believe that.
I mean, not every band tours. I mean, back in the 90s and 80s, you could have an entire career and never step foot out of the studio.
That's true.
You know, and now if you're not going to be on the road, you're doomed. Pretty much, you can't.
Okay. So CD Baby, and do you have an official website?
Nope.
No.
You can go on Facebook and find us there.
Okay.
Twitter. Drake's Hotel Live. CD Baby, Drake's Hotel, and all the other streaming
sort of
sites.
outlets.
There's so many. It's
that
just
are
hard
somewhere on your phone.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many. It's impossible to keep track of them all, but it's all out there.
So it is available, and it's worldwide. So
Yep.
anyone listening, because I actually was going through the statistics of the podcast the other day, and I saw that there were 3 downloads from Saudi Arabia, and I'm like, wow, how insane is that? Like, Saudi Arabia, like you just wouldn't think anyone there would even somehow I mean, how did they even find it in the first place? I always find that so strange.
Wow.
What was the Brazilian show that we were on
a
while
we did
ago?
an
That was all in
with,
Spanish.
What
we're like, how
was
did
that?
you find us?
Yeah. The blog that celebrates itself. They have a radio show, and they're in Brazil, and he contacted us, and we did an interview with him, and like, how?
How did you
I
think it must have been
Brazil. Is that like via Skype or something?
Well, it was a written one,
okay.
and then he did a show, and then we did a cover of a Cocteau Twins song for a tribute album that they did, that radio station.
In Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's worldwide now, but
right,
the label is in Brazil.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your what are your plans coming up for the rest of the year, or sort of goals as a band, or what are you looking to do from this point forward? Anything concrete that you?
We're going to put out. We've been debating upon EPs and full lengths, and we're going to put out a full length in, I hope, middle of July was what we decided on. Maybe the end of July. So that should be out. We're working on that. I'm putting out a solo in probably mid-June.
Is that going to be under your own name, or are you calling the band name?
The band's The Heart Wants.
Okay.
And that's going to be a full length as well. So we've been...
Is that 100% just you on everything?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Background vocals on a couple songs.
Background vocals.
Oh, I don't know about that.
She wants it to be my own thing, but I've roped her into singing on a couple songs. So yeah, that should be in mid-June, and then ours should be out mid-July. And then lots of shows.
So you plan on touring again after that once that comes out?
Yeah, we're going to work hard on setting that all up.
Okay, cool.
Definitely local this summer, for sure, as much as we can.
Right. What would be your dream tour at this point? Like, if you could get a spot on a tour that's actually happening.
That's happening now?
Yeah, what would be that spot?
The Horrors are on tour.
Oh, yeah.
They're coming here in November.
I know.
Or October.
I know.
I
think they already have an opening act.
Who do I have to
man,
sleep
if
with? That bill.
That
we're
would
a
be
huge
good
fan
show,
of their last album.
Yeah.
Skying. Oh man.
Have you heard the new one?
We just bought the new one.
We just bought it. Bought
just
the
got it.
vinyl.
I think 2 days ago, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard about half of it, and I liked it a lot so
Yeah.
far. But I liked them before. I thought it was weird that their sound seems to be changing. I mean, they were sort of like a darker kind of, almost more gothic band.
Yeah, when they started, for sure.
And they've definitely, the new album, from what I've heard, about half of it, like I said, they're definitely getting into more synthier sounds and stuff like that. That's good for them. I mean, a band shouldn't stay doing the same thing the whole time. And kudos to a British band that actually would play in some place like Omaha, because so many of those bands, they come over and they play New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Minneapolis, and they call that like a U.S. tour.
Right.
And, well, you're never going to make it in the States if you don't play in places where people actually live, like Omaha or Kansas City or whatever.
Yeah, I see great bands coming around. Like, are they going to come here? You know, and then we debate: should we just drive to?
You decided to fill out the band with other people.
Okay.
But you could pick any people in the world, and they would just do it live or dead.
Live or dead?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who would you want to fill out the rest of the lineup?
Jeez. Man, that is tough. That is tough. I have a lot of favorite musicians. They wouldn't play well together.
But it's your fantasy, so it could work out however. So
this is all you, I think.
This is all me. I'm a big fan of The House of Love.
Okay.
So Terry Bickers is an amazing guitar player.
So he'd be coming in on guitar.
He'd be coming on guitar. Well, let's see. At this point, I have so many guitar players I'd love. We'd have 12 guitar players in the band.
Right.
So we'd have Geordie Walker from Killing Joke and Robin Guthrie from Cocteau Twins.
Okay, so now we got 4 guitar players.
There you go.
Okay,
that's all we need.
Yeah,
that's really
what
it.
about bass and drums?
Bass and drums.
I like Interpol's bass player.
Well, which guy, though? Because there's a new guy.
Carlos?
Yeah, the original one.
Yeah.
The original one, okay.
That's tough. Geez. The drummer for the Chameleons, John Lever. One of my favorite drummers.
Okay, so that would be the lineup right there. We'll stay right there.
We'll stick with that. Is that enough?
Drummer from the Chameleons.
5 guitar players.
4 or 5 guitar players. The bass player from, I already forgot.
Interpol.
From Interpol, right. The original guy, not the new guy.
Yeah.
Although that new guy is from, he was in Slint.
Who's playing for him now?
I think his name was Dave Pajo or something like that. I think he's there. He filled in. I don't know if he's still there, but he replaced him at least for that tour. I don't know if he's like the official replacement or whatever, but you know, that's a pretty good guy to get, I suppose. But, okay, so what's the first record you bought with your own money?
The K-Tel's Best of the Beach Boys. Ordered it off TV. It was the greatest day of my life when that thing came.
Mine was a Pat Benatar album, and I'm trying to remember which one.
See, I actually know all the Pat Benatar albums. Probably, I know. Just Get Nervous. There was Tropic. Something Tropic was in the title. Tropic.
This probably would have been 82, 83.
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I have a bunch of Pat Benatar records actually. That one was Shadows in the Night.
That might have been it.
That might have been it. Okay, I'm trying to remember what that record is called. I can't remember. I'll to make a mental note to put that in there. And then I guess to close out, I would say, what has been your best experience as a band? And it could be anything from just an amazing show we had, or maybe you met somebody cool at a show, or something like a celebrity said, like celebrity, but like, a musician you respect said, hey, I like your music, or whatever. I mean, what was your greatest experience as a band so far?
Yeah, mine was opening for Helio Sequence because I just love them, and it was just sheer persistence by Chris getting on that bill, and I just never thought it was going to happen. And the day he told me, I almost cried. I was like, I can't believe I'm opening for them.
They were super cool.
Yeah, they're so talented, and yeah, getting to open up for your heroes is a really big deal.
Yeah, no, that sounds like it. I mean, so that would be a cool. When was that? Was that here?
That was Kansas City.
Oh, Kansas City. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because I didn't actually remember that, Bill. Well, what have you got coming up? I mean, do you have any shows booked at the moment? So we're just waiting. The record in July.
Record's
Drake's
July.
Hotel record in July.
I'm going to try and start booking with that in mind, and just rehearsing.
Now, have you actually have you encountered anyone that like actually just discovered the band strictly through through a TV show, and sort of reached out to you and said, "Hey"?
I'm trying to think.
I haven't in person, but we did discover like a Chinese music video tribute to broadcast to the Addicted on YouTube.
Oh, and the radio station La Grita, or
yeah,
how do you say
he did
it?
a fan video.
Yeah, they made a fan video before we knew them.
Yeah. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that works out then. There you go. That's Drake's Hotel. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Hope you learned a little something. Maybe found a new band that you like. I know I learned a lot during this one because I started off knowing virtually nothing about this band, and now I know a whole lot more. Looking forward to this new record coming out a little bit later. On the next Dark Stuff podcast, I'm going to be mixing it up a little bit. Episode 109 is going to feature a group discussion about the Replacements. There are a number of people that I know who have seen the Replacements since they've reunited on their festival tour. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it compares to the old days, our love of the Replacements, the new addition of Billie Joe Armstrong from Green Day being a member of the band. All sorts of topics will be coming up. So we're going to mix it up a little bit on the next Dark Stuff podcast. Until the next podcast is available, make sure you stay up to date by going to thedarkstuff.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast at your favorite place, wherever you get it, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, etc., and so you never miss an episode. I appreciate you guys listening very, very much. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.
Transfer of data is complete.